what's going on, beautiful jellyfish? It's Tracy. Thanks so much for hanging out. And today I'm going to be doing a video talking about colorless Anthem effects. And I thought this video would be really helpful if you're building a sort of deck where you just really want to puff your team. You really want to pump your team. I thought this would be a really helpful video. So yeah, let's just hop into it. The first card I want to talk about is Heraldic Banner. I really enjoy this card. Your team does only get +1/+0, but what I really like about this is that it not only has a pump effect, but it also has the effect that it's a mana rock. I really enjoy this card. I think this card can kind of take the spot of two different cards, where if you had a mana acceleration, but you have a deck where your creatures of that chosen color, because you do have to pick a color when it enters the battlefield, I think you can kind of get away with running this card because it does also double as adding 1 mana of that chosen color to your pool. So I really enjoy this card. I think I have this card in 3 of my decks, and I really like it. And it's very inexpensive too, which is really awesome. The second card I want to talk about is the Immortal Sun, and the Immortal Sun's a great card. It does a lot of different things. So first off, it says players can't activate Planeswalker loyalty abilities. Note it does say Planeswalker, so that does impact you. So if you're building this, if you're putting this in a deck, I would not recommend having a lot of Planeswalkers. At the beginning of a draw step, you do get to draw an additional card, which is awesome. Spells you cost 1 less to cast, and creatures you control get +1/+1. This is all around a great card that belongs in a lot of different decks. I actually don't own this card, and I need to get my hands on it because it does so many different things, and I think it's really good. It pumps your team, and it does all these other things. And it's not only just of a certain type, it's just all of your creatures, which is really strong. So Immortal Sun is a great card. The next card I want to talk about is Caged Sun. This is probably, I would say, one of the oldest, like, that I know of, Anthem type effects that are colorless. So it enters the battlefield and you choose a color, and those creatures get +1/+1. And in addition, when a land causes you to add 1 mana of the chosen color, you get to add an additional mana, which is so good. So it not only gives you +1/+1, but it doubles your mana. This is really strong. It is 6 mana, so it is a lot, but it's like I'm picturing the card, it's like Marara's Wake basically, but it's for colorless, which is so good. Caged Sun is a great card. I would really recommend it. It's about $10, a little bit on the pricey side for some people, but honestly, I think this is a great card for pumping your team and also doubling your mana. So it's kind of like you're technically paying, if you want to think about it, like 3 mana for this card, because then your mana just taps for double, which is really good. If you're playing this when you have 6 lands, you have 12 mana, which is really good if someone lets you untap with this. Probably shouldn't, because it also pumps your team, so yeah. It's funny, I feel like I'm talking about Anthem effects, but I'm also talking about, like, they do so many more things, which is so cool. The next card is Hall of Triumph. Great budget card. It says you choose a color, and creatures you control the chosen color get +1/+1. Pretty straightforward, really basic, not a whole lot to say here. It does pump only of that chosen color, but if you're playing this in a monocolor deck, it doesn't matter. And even you could get away with it in 2-color decks. It just might not impact your whole team, but nonetheless, this is a really good card, and it's also very affordable. The next card is I Cannot See This. There we go. It just was extremely tiny, and I can't see anything because I'm insanely old. That's a little bit of an exaggeration. But Icon of Ancestry. I remember as soon as I saw this card, I was like, this is going to be such a great card, and it is so affordable too, which is awesome. It is the battlefield you choose a creature type. This is just really important to note because some of these say color and some of these say creature type, so I would be really careful about based on what you're building. And then creatures of that chosen type get +1/+1. And then for 3, you can tap it to look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card of the chosen type and put that into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. I really enjoy Icon of Ancestry. I run this card in, I think, only 1 of my decks, maybe 2. I think I run it in Zombies and I might run it in Merfolk. But Merfolk has a lot of cards other than Merfolk, so I think that's the thing I would say is if you're playing a very creature-heavy deck, I really enjoy Icon of Ancestry, but if you're running a lot of creatures, but you're also running a lot of instants and sorceries and things like that, I might stay away from this card. I really like it in zombies because like so much of my deck is zombies and I really enjoy it, but just because then you're pitching away those instant sorceries, enchantments, things like that, you're putting them on the bottom. So that that would be like the one note that I would make about this card is just be careful what you're running it in. Because if you're running it with a lot of other cards other than creatures, you don't get as much value off of this card because then you're taking a lot of those cards and you're putting them at the bottom. But creature heavy decks, this card works great in. Okay, one of my personal favorite cards, and that is Vanquishers Banner. I really enjoy this card a lot. This was another card that as soon as it hit, I was like, this is going to be a great card, and it definitely is. You choose a creature type, and those cards get +1/+1, and whenever you cast a creature of the chosen spell, draw a card. This is like me in a card. It does so many things I want it to. Not only does it pump your team, but it makes you draw cards every time you cast spells of the chosen type. It is a little bit mana heavy. It is 5 mana, but honestly, I think for doing 2 abilities that are really strong, I think that's really good. Giving your team +1/+1 is a huge advantage. When you have 1/1 tokens and they suddenly become 2/2s, you have a lot more of a threatening board presence. I think sometimes some people don't realize just the impact of giving your team +1/+1, what that can really have. So good. I feel like that a lot with Alila because I have a lot of these Anthem effects in Alila, which is actually what inspired me to do this video. And I realized as like just my fairies being 1/1s and then getting +2/+2, and I have 5 of them. So it's like if I have 5 3/3s, like that's 15 damage right there. That can add up extremely quickly. So really good. This is for my people who are building artifact decks, and that is Chief of the Foundry. Chief of the Foundry does only impact artifact creatures, but I honestly think if you're building an artifact deck and you want to pump your team, Chief of the Foundry is a really good option. It is a creature and it is an artifact, so it's probably most likely going to get removed because artifact removal is very prevalent in EDH. But honestly, for what it is, the 3 mana 2/3 to just give all your things +1/+1, nothing really to say here. It's a great card. The next card I want to talk about is one of my personal favorites, and that is Eldrazi Monument. I love Eldrazi Monument. One thing I will say about this card, though, is you do have to sacrifice something in order to keep it on the board. One thing I would just make sure you're doing is I think this belongs best in token type of decks or decks where you don't really care if your cards go to the graveyard because you're just able to bring them back. It does say everything gets +1/+1 and flying and indestructible. This is like seriously just such a good card all around, but you do have to sack something, so that's one thing I would just make sure to note. This is my personal favorite is this in token strategies because you get to sack it and you don't really care, but this could also work in decks where you get something when it dies, where it gets like a death trigger or something like that. I think it would work really well in decks like that. So Eldrazi Monument, such a good card. I really enjoy it. The next card is Glass of the Guildpact. I did want to include this in here because it's an Anthem effect. I don't think this card is like amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but I think if you're looking for art for colorless effects, I think this might, you know, it might speak to some people. It's only 2 mana. It is only multicolored creatures, so I would be very wary about putting this if you have a lot of just monocolored creatures. I would really focus this primarily on multicolored creatures. It is 2 mana though, so I think for that effect, and I think if you had an extra slot and you wanted a little bit more buff to your team, I think this would be a good card. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just kind of like, it's fine. If you're running maybe like just a lot of, you know, a lot of different kinds of creatures that have different mana symbols, but yeah, I did want to throw it on there. And the last card I want to talk about is Coat of Arms. It says each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares at least one creature type with it. Coat of Arms gets out of hand extremely quickly because if you are playing Coat of Arms and you have 5 creatures, correct me if I'm wrong, but they each get +5/+5, or maybe it's +4/+4 because it's each other one that shares a type. This card is incredibly good, and if left unchecked, you can just really have an insanely large team that is incredibly challenging to deal with. So, Coat of Arms is a great card. So, guys, that is everything for this video. I just wanted to talk about 10 cards that I thought were good colorless Anthem effects for those people who want to buff their team a little bit more. If you liked my video, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll catch you guys in my next one. Bye.